Hello, everyone, and welcome back. If you are new, welcome to the Bougie Oreo, where I give my opinion and perspective on history, current events, entertainment, and other stories as it relates to Black culture. Now, I know I haven't posted in a while, but to be honest, these last few weeks I've just had analysis paralysis. There have been so many events that have happened, and these stories happen so quickly and then they dissolve even quicker. In the recent weeks, we've had the Derek Chauvin trial and conviction. We had a few other police incidents like the Dwayne Wright and the military officer and Adam Toledo. And when these things happen, I try to avoid shooting from the hip with a reaction and opinion before more of the facts come out. So I like to wait for the details, marinate on it, and try to think critically about my main points. And these stories have just happened so fast that I haven't been able to follow all of those steps, and I didn't want to do any story like this half-assed. So for this video, I want to talk about the Ma'Khia Bryant police incident in Columbus. So for those of you who don't know or don't have all of the details, before the media could complete their first victory lap on the Derek Chauvin conviction last week, news and video of the deadly police encounter with Ma'Khia Bryant in Columbus started to make the rounds on Twitter the very same day as that conviction came down. And the first thing that I saw about this story was cell phone video footage from one of the neighbors. And the story that was circulating initially was that people came to this girl's house to jump her. Ma'Khia called the police, asking for assistance because she feared for her life. The police showed up, and then eventually they shot her 4 times and killed her. That was the initial story. However, the Columbus police officials released the body cam footage, and that footage shows a different story, or at least more details that weren't initially reported from that story. So I want to talk about the facts of the situation based on what we have in the video. I am going to play 2 videos. One video is from a news station that showed the body cam footage, and they also provided some narration. And the second video I'm going to play is security footage from one of the neighbors across the street. So as I play these videos, please be advised that this is graphic content. So if you don't want to see exactly what happened and the play-by-play, you can go ahead and skip ahead. Viewer discretion is advised.
Arriving at 3171 Legion Lane.
This is body camera footage of Officer Nicholas Reardon arriving on scene at 4:44 Tuesday afternoon. About 10 seconds after he steps out of the car, this scene plays out.
Hey, get down, get down, get down, get down.
Let's now break down what happened.
Hey.
Reardon starts approaching a group of 7 people. The girl in pink holding a dog starts talking to him.
What's going on? Hey, what's going on?
But then to his right, one female falls to the ground during a scuffle.
What's going on? Hey!
At closer look, you can see a teen, later identified as 16-year-old Ma'Khia Bryant, with a knife in her right hand before the other girl falls.
Get down! Get down!
Reardon draws his gun as Bryant goes after the girl in pink. At the same time, an unidentified man kicks the girl who is already on the ground. But Reardon is focused on Bryant, who still has the knife in her right hand. She draws her hand back, then up, as the girl in pink is now pinned against the car. Officer Reardon shoots 4 times. Bryant falls to the ground. The girl in pink takes off. After the shooting, you can see the knife laying on the ground. While some officers perform chest compressions on Bryant, others rush to separate witnesses, walking them to different cruisers. You can overhear a brief conversation between an officer and the girl in pink.
He came after me with the knife. Yeah, so he got it.
So in case you decided to skip ahead, I'm going to do a quick recap. Both of the videos show the police officer pulling up in his car. The police officer got out of his car and immediately asked what was going on. The girl or the lady in pink, while she was holding her dog, started to talk to the police officer before they could really get any details out, or another scuffle developed to the right. And in this one, Ma'Khia appears to have knocked another black woman down, while a black man in the video kicks the woman while she's down. Ma'Khia turns around and then attacks the girl in pink with a knife. And she's getting ready to lunge that knife, and that's when the police officer fired some shots to get Ma'Khia to stop. I'm also going to add that while this is going on, when the scuffle started and before Ma'Khia got up and turned her knife on the lady in the pink, you do hear the cop in the video saying, "Get down, get down, get down," and no one really paid attention to these directives, and the cop really had no choice but to shoot in order to protect the girl in pink from being stabbed by Ma'Khia. Was the death of Ma'Khia Bryant tragic? Yes, absolutely. Very tragic. Was it avoidable without causing injury or death? No, definitely not. So while we talk about issues with policing in America, it's important that we really start to be honest about the situations on an individual level and the actions that led to these deadly outcomes. I'm not saying that police never behave badly. Mind you, I'm from Chicago. Among other things, Chicago is notorious for its police corruption and police abuse. I am never going to say that police never ever behave badly. However, I will say that not every police encounter is bad behavior on that police officer, and we need to be a little bit more honest about what really happened. We can no longer go along with the media narrative that Ma'Khia was just trying to defend herself and get help, not when she was literally about to stab a woman in front of that police officer. And it's funny because while we say we are afraid of the police and we're afraid of being killed at the hands of the police, the behavior of everyone in this group seems to suggest otherwise. When that police officer pulled up, no one stopped what they were doing. No one really even paid attention. They didn't stop fighting. They didn't get down. They continued to fight. And Ma'Khia came out of that house with that knife in her hand. And you can hear her on the video when she knocks the first black woman down. She says, "I am going to stab the fuck out of you, bitch." In front of the police officer. This is not the actions of someone who is afraid of the police and afraid of violence from the police. This is the action of someone who does not care. And that is a bigger problem than the incident itself. So one of the prevailing narratives is that Ma'Khia was trying to defend herself, and that's why she had the knife. Now, if someone is coming at you to attack you, you do have the right to defend yourself. But the moment that your assailant pauses and starts to retreat, if you then continue to pursue them, it is no longer self-defense. From the time that the officer got out of his car and closed the door, between the time that Ma'Khia was then on the ground after being shot, that was 10 seconds of interaction. In those 10 seconds, Ma'Khia was no longer defending herself, and she became the aggressor for the entire clip of that police interaction. In those 10 seconds, Ma'Khia pushed one black woman to the ground, and she yelled, "I am going to stab the fuck out of you, bitch," as she lunged at the woman in pink, while the woman in pink was backing away and was not a threat to her. And Ma'Khia pulled her knife back, getting ready to stab the woman in pink. Now, even if Ma'Khia was initially the victim before the police arrived, in those 10 seconds, she became the threat, and the woman in pink became the victim. And the officer's duty was to protect the woman in pink's black life. Because remember, Black lives matter. Now, while I was lurking on Twitter and trying to get some of the initial details about this story, I saw a lot of chatter or feedback and comments from people saying, well, why didn't the police officer de-escalate and negotiate? You know, why couldn't he shoot the knife out of her hand? Why didn't he shoot her in the leg? Why did he have to shoot her to kill? Why didn't he shoot a warning shot? Why didn't he shoot a shot in the air or shoot a warning shot in the ground? And I think people who make this argument are either ignorant or woefully disingenuous about the situation. And I want to explain why. And I think if you fall into this camp, I recommend that you take some type of self-defense class or self-defense with a handgun class, because these situations don't play out the way that they do in movies and in television. And that, unfortunately, is the way that we think of a lot of these action scenes and police encounters, by what we've seen on television and in movies. And that's just not the reality. So the reality is, when Ma'Khia got up to attack the woman in pink and the officer firing those shots, that was less than 3 seconds. 3 seconds. In the course of 3 seconds, there is not enough time for that police officer to aim and accurately shoot the knife out of that girl's hand from about 10 to 12 feet of distance, and you have a 2-inch radius of area where you need to shoot this knife out of this girl's hand. If you miss, you shoot the girl in pink and you've killed someone else, an innocent bystander. If you happen to hit that woman's hand, you risk having the force of that bullet push that knife towards the woman in pink. So shooting her out of the hand or shooting her in the leg is not a guarantee. If you shoot her in the leg, there's no guarantee that she's still not going to push that knife into the woman in pink's body. And the goal here is to keep that knife out of the woman in pink's body. That is the sole goal. That is the sole duty of that officer in those 3 seconds. In 3 seconds, there is not enough time to fire off a warning shot or to negotiate and de-escalate and guarantee that that knife does not go into that woman's body. Secondly, when it comes to handgun safety and defense, there really is no such thing as a warning shot. And when you operate a handgun, you are responsible for every bullet that comes out of that chamber. So if you shoot a warning shot into the air, that bullet is going to come down. And that bullet can come down and hit anybody or anything in the process of coming down, and you are responsible for what happens with that bullet. If you shoot a shot on the ground, there is a risk that that bullet ricochets and hits someone else, and you are responsible. So you are never in any handgun safety class taught to fire any type of warning shot. And then the last item of de-escalation, that knife was inches away from being plunged into that woman's body. There is no time to ask and beg, especially after that cop has repeatedly said, "Get down," and not risk that knife going into that woman. Now, also in the video, there was a black man in the video, the one who kicked one of the women while she was down. And this was the man who later on in the clip, after Ma'Khia had been shot, had said, "This is a kid, how could you?" And, he continued to berate the police officer. The time to de-escalate and negotiate should have came from this man before the police officer even arrived. And I find it ironic that when that cop showed up, this whole grown man adult didn't tell everybody, "Get down, get out of the way, the police are here," or try to tell Ma'Khia to get down or put the knife down. Nobody told her to put the knife down while this police officer is getting out of his car, walking up and trying to find out what's going on. So this is not the action of anybody who is afraid of the police and afraid of losing their life. They did not care. The adults in this situation did not care. And that is the bigger tragedy to this whole situation, besides what happened to Ma'Khia. So some things that we can learn out of this situation, because even though this is a tragedy, there are things for us to learn to avoid going into this kind of situation or having a similar outcome. And the first thing that I've said is learn about self-defense. It's not enough to say she attacked me, therefore I get to attack and kill or beat up this person. There is a line between being the victim and being the offender. And if we're going to talk about cases of self-defense, we need to learn where that line resides. At the point when your assailant is no longer coming at you, and if they start to retreat, if you start to pursue that person or continue to fight, you become the threat. So in this case, at the time when that police officer showed up to investigate what was going on, Ma'Khia became the threat, regardless of anything that happened before this encounter. And the police officer's job was to neutralize that threat. So we need to learn the laws and the boundaries of self-defense. The second thing that we can learn out of this is the talk. Anytime there's a situation of these police encounters, especially when it comes to police encounters with Black people, you hear the news and you hear all of the media and Black leaders talk about, having to talk to their kids and tell them how to behave with the police because the police see Black people as a threat. But let's have an honest conversation about what we are told when our parents give us the talk and what we actually do when we encounter the police. When I received the talk, my mom told me to be respectful, comply, even if the police is wrong, comply and live to see another day, versus making that police officer feel threatened and feel like they need to defend themselves. I was also told to shut up. You have a right to remain silent. Therefore, you need to exercise your right to remain silent. So be respectful, be calm, comply, and if anything wrong happens, you can live to see another day and complain and go through those channels going forward. None of what I said that I learned in my talk happened in this encounter. The police showed up. Ma'Khia ran out the house chasing the first woman with a knife in her hand. She pushed the woman on the ground. The man, the whole ass grown man, kicked that Black woman while she was down, and Ma'Khia said, "I'm going to stab the F out of you." Then Ma'Khia turned that knife, ignored police directions to get down, and attacked another woman. None of that was in my talk. If it was in your talk, you can leave it in the comment section and fill me in, but none of that was in my talk. The third thing that I think we can learn from this is that the adults in our community need to step up as adults. In this situation, the adults participated in this fight as this escalated. None of the adults here said, "The police are here. Everybody get down." None of the adults in this situation told Ma'Khia to put the knife down, to stop going at it. None of the adults, even those who were there to try to help her, gave her direction and worked to de-escalate the situation even before the police got there. So we need the adults in the room in our community to start acting like adults and provide guidance to these children and to our youth on how to behave and how to control their anger and their temper and their reactions. The adults in this situation failed this girl. And the last thing that I want to talk about is women acting in their masculine. I also frequent some of the femininity channels, and I was waiting to see how some of these femininity or Black femininity gurus tackled this discussion around Ma'Khia Bryant's shooting. And I found it interesting because one of the people that I follow spent her video time talking about the difference between how the Black community reacts to males being shot by the police even when he's the aggressor, compared to how we react to a female being shot by police, and the differences in those situations. And I felt like this was a disservice to young Black women everywhere, because what hasn't been said is that we in the Black community, especially as women, are taught to be strong. We are taught to be survivors. We are taught to be fighters. We are taught to, handle business without needing a man. And we are raised to act masculine. We are raised to act like men. And in this situation, and using kind of the femininity verbiage here, is Ma'Khia was acting in her masculine. Even when she was the victim and she could have stopped and gone to the police for help when they pulled up, she was acting in her masculine and continuing this fight and continuing to be the aggressor. And the unfortunate truth is when you act like a man, you sometimes will get the response that a man gets. This entire encounter happened in 10 seconds. And the encounter from when Ma'Khia got up and attacked the woman in pink, between her being shot and falling down, took place in 3 seconds. There is not enough time for that police officer to assess everyone who was there, to ask for everyone's names and ages, to recognize that this is a child, especially when they don't necessarily look like a child, and to save this woman's life. There's just not enough time. And his job was to neutralize the threat. And unfortunately and tragically, in this situation, Ma'Khia was the threat. So if we're going to talk about reforming police and changing the relationship between Black people or people of color and the police, and really have this honest conversation and try to pass legislation, we also need to really be honest about what's going on here and what our behaviors are. We can't say that we're afraid of the police and we're afraid of the police killing us, but then when the police show up, we are wielding knives and weapons and fighting, and totally disregard the fact that the police are there and disregard the instructions that they give. We can't have it both ways. We can't say that Black women are the least protected while also being the most aggressive. We can't have it both ways. So we really need to look in the mirror and look at each other and hold ourselves accountable for our behavior. It's okay to recognize this tragic situation without being outraged and trying to blame the police, when in fact, the police did not do anything wrong in this situation. And Ma'Khia Bryant, although young, although she may have been ignorant, although she may have been emotional, her actions is what created the situation and the outcome that she received. So the best thing that we can do now is to learn from this situation and start to educate ourselves and our children on what kind of behavior is appropriate and what is not. What qualifies as self-defense and what does not. That's all I have to say for this video. Thank you for taking time to listen. Leave any comments or feedback in the comment section, and I will see you for the next video. Have a great week, everyone.